allows for people to come in and out, of their schedule. But I do try to cover a lot too. And then, of course, we record these sessions. So, and we put up on our YouTube. So if you wanted to see our previous sessions, you could go to our YouTube, which is linked off of our website. Also, if you do not have access to raia and you are a CSI company, which I think most of you are, you can sign up for a developer license pretty easily just by going to license.raia.run. It's on the screen here. A developer license is free for anybody within CSI. You just have to put your email and request it, and then we just verify domain, and then we send over a license. It is limited, the number of tokens you can use, but you can certainly get in there, play around, and see if it's something that you guys would consider using. The other thing is, if you ever need any guidance or help or knowledge around the product and how it works, we also have a great docs.raiaai.com. We have free training for AI agents. You can share that with anybody who wants to, from beginner to expert, learn about how to build AI agents and kind of what we've learned. And it's to some degree somewhat independent of our platform, although our platform, I think, follows best practices and common sense. Even if you're building agents on something else, I think those training courses will help you as well, especially if you're new to the whole idea of it. Yeah, so we're going to get started here. This is the basics of the rules. There are no rules. Just post your questions anytime, and I'm going to toggle back and forth, do my best. But for the most part, it's just it's free flowing. I'm going to start building some agents. I'm going to talk about how you can do certain things. If you want to see something specific, I'll shift gears, talk about it. It's meant to be kind of a real time, if you will, demo. Before we get started, too, and I'm just going to toggle over here, just because a lot of you might leave early, and I just want to make sure that this is something that you are aware of. Obviously, we are a CSI company. We are built by CSI for CSI. We came out of the venture group. We are deployed in many, many different BUs, and so, obviously part of the whole mission here is to advance and accelerate the deployment of agents within CSI. We're one piece of that puzzle, and I'm here just to kind of talk to you about what we've built over the last few years and kind of what we've deployed and how it works. We are going back on the road. We go from CSI location to CSI location. If you are anywhere near these locations, we're happy to invite you to our event. And of course, if you're not anywhere near here, we obviously have virtual events, or please ping us if your portfolio is having an event and you'd like for us to attend and talk about AI, or if you're a business unit and you're in a city that's that has a lot of other BUs and we can kind of bring it together and do a workshop, just kind of feel free to ping us and ask us if we would consider. But these are the dates of our world tour. We're like a cover band. Sometimes we go to we try to get to the big cities as much as we can, but we're willing to travel to smaller cities, because I know a lot of CSI companies are in areas that are not as commonly traveled. So I just wanted to get that out there before we get started. All right, so let me toggle over to the platform because I'm actually right now advancing one of our more popular agents, and so I thought I would just go ahead and kind of talk about what I'm doing with it, because we're going to be enhancing the training on it. So might as well get some work done here while we're at it. So this is our, for you that are not familiar with the products, maybe I should just real quickly also just kind of just give you a high-level overview. So as I'm talking to about these different products, you will understand what I'm talking about. So we have, what I'm going to start with is I'm going to show you our CX product, which is basically the core of our platform. It is where we build and manage your AI agents. Now, our AI agents, we do have a platform that we launch and run the AI agents for you. But quite honestly, if you're building agents or you're building some things on other things like a Copilot, or you've got a prompt that you're working with, or pretty much anywhere, we support the uploading of that information, and allows you to launch your agent in a environment that you can manage in a central location. I'm also going to talk. We're going to use a little bit of raia command, which is kind of the knowledge center, is where you upload your documents and you connect to your third-party apps to kind of curate all the training that's required for the agent to operate. And so that's a very important part of building out an agentic workforce, is you need to basically centralize a lot of your knowledge so that and make it AI ready, so you can put it into the brain of the AI. These are the two ones that we're going to primarily use today. I will toggle over to Copilot, which is the internal interface that we use to test and train the AI agents. But in some cases, we use it to actually interface the agents, for business functions like support, sales, and other things. And then if we have time, I might toggle over and do a little bit of chat. But for the most part, we're going to live in the today. We're going to talk about, unless I'm asked to do something else, we're going to live inside of raia CX and Copilot and Command, and build out these agents here. And so let me just prep up. All right, so that just gives you an idea of the products. All right, so and here we are. So I'm going to be inside of this is CX, and I'm logged in as an org. So basically, what happens is when you sign up for raia, or you're inside of raia, you have one or more orgs that you are managing, right? So some of our company customers have multiple orgs, right? We might have for development, for testing, for live, or individual developers might want to have their own org for building things. But for the most part, like most of the BUs might have one primary org where they deploy their agents for a variety of use cases. Today, we're going to focus on building out a knowledge base agent, and I'm going to walk through kind of all the functionality that's possible, and allowing you to, let's say, for example, in this case, this is a knowledge base agent that 500 plus people use across CSI in the finance groups. And I think it's providing them a lot of value, because they're asking very complicated questions about accounting policies. It used to be done by a few different people, requiring their time and energy to answer questions that were incoming. And now an AI is able to do that and save them time and energy. And it's a very popular agent. So the task today is I've been given some new training. So we're gonna kind of update the agent, refine it. I'm also presenting this agent next week at Google, so it actually helps me kill two birds, or three birds with one stone. So all right, if you do not have access to this agent and you're on the finance team, you can be invited. It's a very valuable agent. The interface that you would have would be through our Copilot, and you can see that here, where and again, this is live right now. Literally one of our most popular agents within CSI, where people are asking very complicated questions, as you can see. Like, these are very long, very in-depth questions, and this AI has been trained on a multitude of our accounting policies. And so the task at hand today is, so this is the interface that you would typically see as a user, right? So it's very ChatGPT. I can come in here and ask a question like, how do I allocate, I don't know, just something easy like prepaid rent. And then the idea is that this has been trained not only on the CSI policies, but KPMG, SaaS policies, and also today we're going to be uploading a new set of policies so that we can get the agent to be smarter and able to even answer more questions. And today we're going to it's going to do IFRS. So anyway, so you can see here, it provides pretty clear answers. What's cool about this is that it's trained on specific information around CSI. So it's leveraging the OpenAI model and the large language model for reasoning and for in-depth, obviously to do the hard lifting. But because it's trained on our information, it's specific to what we want, right? And what's cool about this Copilot is you can see the sources, you can see what files it came from, So for clarity, you can also download the answers. So as an example, if you want to download it as a doc or markdown or something like that. And of course, you can also provide feedback. So you can do human feedback. And this is important because the users are part of the process of telling us how well an agent is answering. And so, being able to kind of have that human feedback is one of the most important elements of raia, because agents get smarter and smarter and smarter the more that we use them and more that we provide feedback. And you lose that in if you don't have a platform that tracks that kind of stuff. My background is machine learning, and that's what we did prior to generative AI. And so, this is something that a lot of people just kind of ignore or just brush over because it's an afterthought, but it is honestly probably the most critical component of building a really high efficacy agent. Is because think about hundreds of people using this on a daily basis and how much smarter it gets from day 1 to day 60 to day 90. And people tell us all the time about these agents and how that over time it's become smarter and smarter and smarter. And I'm like, exactly. Otherwise, you're just querying the same static database. So human feedback is another powerful component of this. So now I've been tasked today to add more training to the agent. So right now now this is the where I build the agent and manage the agent. Now, obviously not everybody has access to this. Only a handful of people have the ability to access this part of the product. But when you actually have your own platform, if you're the builder, then you're going to be able to build out agents very easily. It's a zero-coded platform. So out of the box, it gives you kind of a very easy way to give the agent a bunch of skills. I kind of equate this to that scene in The Matrix where Neo wants to learn like jujitsu, and they just plug it in their head and he learns jujitsu. And so as part of our job as delivering a platform to all of CSI is that we continually add skills on an ongoing basis that are relevant and important to our customers, which are vertical market software companies and portfolios. So, you'll see skills added all the time. And it's more than just a instructional skill. It's an integrated skill. So for example, in this world, Pacioli, he has an auditor skill that we've installed as an example. So we can monitor any sort of information, like if PII information comes through or anything that looks nefarious comes through, it gets automatically escalated and sent to our oversight team. And so like these kind of things are important to have, because when you deploy an agent, it's not just a chat bot. This is a sophisticated, robust enterprise grade agent where it has many, many things that are part of its ecosystem. So back to the task at hand. When we go to train an AI agent, there's really two primary components. You guys are obviously familiar with prompting, but when you talk about an agent, it has what we call a system prompt or instructional prompt is typically how it's called. And it's a very robust, it's typically very long. So like this is the one that we use here. As you can see, this is not something that you would just simply type in. This is a very, very specific and clear instructional prompt that we build using AI for this specific use case. And it obviously starts off very simple, right? Your job is you're an accounting agent and so forth. But as the prompt gets deeper, you can start to see that it actually has very specific information around, how it operates, what it does, what it goes through as far as its process and thinking. Now, this is basically the primary directive of the AI. It will listen to this more so than anything else. This is the first thing that goes into the context window. So if you think of the context window, think of that as where all the information is kind of dumping in as it starts to process its query to the large language model. So the next thing you're going to look at is the vector store. And the vector store is essentially a database, but what makes a vector store special is that you can put thousands of documents in there. So it's not part of the context window until the context window queries the vector store for more information. So think of the vector store as kind of your long-term memory. And so as you're going through a prompt, just like I went through that prompt a minute ago when I asked about how do I allocate for prepaid rent, it went through the system instructions so it could understand how to answer me. But then it basically hit the vector store as a query, and it pulled back a very verbose, probably a series of answers that matched what my query was looking for. Brought all of that back into the vector store. So it's really like you're optimizing your context window, and you're optimizing your token usage as well. So instead of pumping everything into the context window and shoving 10 pounds into a 1 pound bag, you're basically being very precise, surgical about what you're trying to get back and query and bring it back into the fold so that you can actually come out with a better answer. Now, the challenge I have today is that we have a ton of documents that this AI has been trained on, but we've been given a bunch of new documents that we need to train this AI on. And so, and they're all PDFs, and there are a variety of formats. So like, for example, one, like here is, I'll just drag and drop an example of one that we have to deal with today. So it would look something like this, right? So this is something from the IFRS I've got to train this AI on. So the first thing you'll notice is that like every PDF has its own formatting, right? Sometimes they're scanned, sometimes they're ugly, sometimes they're docx files, sometimes they're PowerPoints. The reality is that's not something that AI really wants to see. That's for us as humans. Like, we've created this world where we have all these different file types. We have all these different, UXs and what I call human user interfaces, which are typically built for humans by humans. We're now moving into an AI native world. And so we have to get everything in its language, in its format that it wants, right? Ultimately, everything that we know and love as far as information has to find its way to becoming a mathematical representation or a vector, right? So one of the biggest challenges when I have to train an AI agent is I might have hundreds of documents. In this case, I do have hundreds of documents, and I need to get this into the agent. But yes, I could upload these PDFs, but it might get processed correctly, maybe not. But the best practice is to convert all of these into what's called Markdown, which is just a text-based format, which is the preferred language of AI. And then from there, I can have our AI chunk it correctly, look at the file, evaluate it, create a knowledge graph, and then vectorize it and put it into the vector store for the AI to be able to go and grab in a clean manner and read. So thus, this is why we created Command. So Command is like if Dropbox and OpenAI, kind of merged together. It's an AI native data room product. So I'm going to kind of toggle over there. So let me first log in before I switch over. Just give me 2 seconds. And so when we built raia, and we've been building raia for 3 years since day one. We launched this as part of our portfolio to automate support and sales. We were doing thousands of outbound lead qualifications for our portfolio, and we were also managing thousands of incoming support tickets. And when AI was dropped on the scene, we said, wow, this thing can actually talk. Why don't we try to build something that actually does this work for us? At the time, nobody really called them agents, but over time, as companies started to as the AI companies started to evolve and models got better, and the concept of agents came into play, we knew that there was going to be 3 things that were guaranteed: that companies were going to not just have 1 or 2 agents, right? Or 1 or 2 live chat bots like they do today on Zendesk or Salesforce. They're going to have hundreds, if not thousands, of agents. And they're not just going to live as a chat interface. It's going to live as an email, SMS, voice, chat, internal interface. It's going to live autonomously behind the scenes of doing work. So, and we knew that it would be hundreds. And obviously, when you think about that scale, you're like, oh, how are we going to manage all this? How is a company going to logistically manage all this? So that was why we built CX. Was we looked at the idea of it was also for self-preservation, for our sanity, because we were building tens of agents at the time, and portfolio companies were coming to us and said, can you build us one? Can you build us one? And it was like we were just duplicating repos, and it was a nightmare, and we had to manage all this code. We're like, there's got to be an easier way. Got rid of all that and put it into a platform, and that's what became CX. Lo and behold, about a year ago, when we started deploying agents at scale for very complicated, very bespoke use cases, where we were dealing with companies in CSI that had thousands of documents, thousands of knowledge base articles, tens of thousands of tickets. We're like, oh my God, this is a lot of data that we got to find its way into the brain of the AI, and so we had to build a product that allowed us to do that. So thus Command was born. So this is Command. I've already connected my agent. So this is connected directly with the CX product. So all you do is you import your agents. So there's Pacioli. I should know this because he's a mathematician, but and my wife is Italian, so 2 points off for that one. But basically, this is the agent that you just saw us from the CX side managing. So we've already connected it to Command, and now I've created, as I mentioned, it's very much like a knowledge data room where you say, okay, here's Pacioli agent. He's been trained on certain amount of documents. I can see the quality of those documents because we've done quality assessment. We've built out a knowledge graph around that, around those documents, and we've converted all of those documents, from whatever their native format was, whether it was PDF, PowerPoint, Word document, whatever, you name it. We've converted those over into Markdown, and from there, what we do from the Markdown document, we actually then when it actually is about to go into the vector store, we do all the embeddings and we chunk it, and then we obviously send it out to the agent for processing. Oops, go back to the files here. Put them wrong. So let me go ahead and show you kind of how I open it. So I've got these new files over here that I'm going to upload, and we're gonna go ahead and convert into PDFs, or I'm sorry, into Markdowns, and then we will go from there. So I'm gonna go ahead and create a new folder here. I'll just call it import for sake. And so I've got these a few documents over here. So we're going to drag and drop them here. Now, these are the new documents that I need to train the AI agent on, right? So the first thing we do is we classify these documents. And what does that mean? It means basically that it's going to kind of read these documents. It's going to kind of create a knowledge graph. And you can see that it's kind of renamed them into friendly names. It's also kind of labeled, which is called labeling in our world, obviously. So it allows us to easily, so what it's doing is it's starting to prep for the AI. So it's saying, okay, this document has a lot of information about inventories and accounting standards. So what we're doing is we're creating a knowledge graph that when we actually push this out to the AI is gonna be able to find these, documents a lot easier, right? Instead of giving it a bunch of stuff and saying, good luck, where it has to find a needle in a haystack, we can actually vectorize these documents closer and closer together, so it provides a better output. And so it's as easy as that. We just drag and drop the documents right into the folder here. And what you'll notice is that, so these are all PDFs, but what you'll notice is that when you go to view a PDF, it's already converted it into the Markdown format that we want. And so why this is important is because this is where our AI starts to, or this product starts to clean it up and starts to find ways of, and also identifies how to best chunk it. And chunking is basically what happens is we divide the file into big pieces, and each one of those big pieces of text that we chunk out gets turned into a mathematical embedding. And that mathematical embedding is a vector in a multidimensional vector space. And not to get too technical, but that's the core of how AI works. It's basically based on the nearest neighbor algorithm. So basically, think of this as when I say the words "the sky is," most of you are thinking blue to finish that sentence. So the sky is a vector, and blue is another vector, and sky is blue is another vector, and it's very, very close to that vector. So AI goes, oh, this looks like it's probably the best way to finish that sentence. So I'm oversimplifying it, but essentially that's what we're doing here, is we're basically making it easier for you, literally drag and drop to basically build out a best practices vector store for this agent to be trained on. And so all of these have been converted and ready to be viewed, and you can analyze them. But another thing I wanted to show you is that we also added this what's called this metadata. And this metadata is critical because what we do is we summarize it. We also, you'll see it here actually, we maintain the file name. This is important because when we actually go do testing and we go and we do citations and we understand where this data came from, we need to track it back, right? In case we need to change it or in case we need to get rid of it, things like that. And then we've given the AI a little bit of a cheat sheet, right? A little bit of a description and some tags. So when it goes and queries, this will help it find that data much quicker. All right, so once it's converted, you can simply come in here and you can make sure you can automate this, but essentially you link your agents to your project. So it tells you what agents you're going to actually be using here, or you can select. You can make it automated, so I can actually make this automatic. So the minute I drag and drop those files, I could have just had it go right into the agent if I'm that confident, or I could come in here and essentially select the documents and I can send it to the agent manually, right? And so the point. The goal here is I want to be able to send these documents for training. I'm going to just keep them as separate documents, and I'm going to send them to Pacioli, and it's off and running. So what you're witnessing here is what I would call one of the key challenges of keeping your AI agents trained and up to date and in sync with your knowledge base, right? And obviously you want to try to automate as much of this as possible. But the reality is that we live in a very dynamic, chaotic world. And as you get more and more of these agents, you want to have a central platform that allows you to understand what this agent has been trained on. And if I need to remove it, if I need to upload it, if I need to add a new one, it's as easy as drag and drop. And that's kind of the spirit of raia. We're an accelerator platform. We're not reinventing the wheel. Basically everything is converging. All companies in the world, including VBUs like us and you, are all converging to the same basic story, which is we are now an AI native mindset. We are building AI internally for optimization, productivity increases. We're going to embed AI into our products to grow organic revenue and to stay relevant. We're all going through the same kind of awkward phases of development. But what we've learned over the last 3 years, building out these things at scale, thousands of agents, is that there's 3 things that slow you down, both in the building of an agent and also the management of the agent. And this is one of them, is training, and testing is the second one, are two of those big major slowdowns. Because what happens is people get really excited. They're like, oh, I'm going to go vibe code something on Claude, and I build an agent. I'm super pumped, and then I go, and then good news is that people like it because it has a cool little UI, and then you go live with it, and it starts to fail, or it starts to not achieve what you want it to achieve, or it doesn't have enough power to do what you want it to do productivity wise. And it's because you might have not necessarily put the energy and efforts into training it correctly or integrating it, or it might be missing some of these big components. So we want to make sure that you can do that with ease. So another component of training is not just documents. So now all the AI, all the files have been uploaded, right? So if I were to toggle, so now I know, if I toggle over to the agent, I now see those files have been uploaded and are inside of my agent now. So if I go, so let's just kind of as an experiment. So if I come over here and let's say I just view this file, because I don't know what to ask. I'm just going to ask a question about something. Let me see here. I'm just going to ask a question about this. So I'm going to ask a question that was trained on here. So now this is me kind of doing basic testing, right? I'm going to come in here and say, give me a basic understanding of this standard, right? So this is something that we just trained it on. And so now I know what you're thinking in your head is like, this is great. As far as like, I can have my team go in there and ask questions, but what I really want to do is really push the envelope and train this thing so that not only can it answer questions that I give it, right? Because maybe my people know what to ask it, but I want to do it at scale. I want to simulate hundreds of questions to see what it answers. And I want to base those 100 questions on previous questions, or maybe if it's a support agent, I want to base it on tickets that I had in the last year. So this is another really cool thing that you can do within Command. So you can see right now, like, it's that easy, right? So as I'm talking to you, basically what you just kind of experienced is that you can see that it was this document here is I literally dragged and dropped multiple documents. It converted, and I didn't even have to click the upload button if I had it set on automatic. It went to my agent. It synced up with my agent. My agent is now trained, and I went on to Copilot and I asked a question about one of those documents, and then it's there. I know it feels like somewhat trivial, but that element there 3 years ago would have took a long time for us, even with tools that are out there, like dealing with vector stores, dealing with the conversion, dealing with all that stuff was a nightmare, and it was hard to manage, but I just did it without, and anybody could have done that. It's super easy, right? Drag and drop this into the brain of the AI, you're done. But now I want to test it. So I can come in here and obviously ask it one question at a time. I can look at the answer if I know this is a good answer, and I can start grading it, right? And this is what we call human feedback, and this is something we track very closely. So we track all feedback and activity around this so that we can actually feed back into the AI and actually improve it. But another thing that we saw that we added into Command was this idea that we could run simulations. So what's cool about a simulation is I can actually upload multiple questions and have the AI answer them, and then I can have my domain experts on my company or some financial analysts to actually go through and grade the AI on its performance. Just because I'm lazy, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to have AI give me a bunch of questions. But typically, what would happen is I'll just say, give me 10 complicated questions about SaaS revenue recognition, one per line. So I'm just going to have, because this AI knows everything about this, finances, I'm just going to have it build me a list of questions. Now, typically what we would do is we'd get this, if it was a support agent, we would get this from your tickets, right? So we would export your tickets from Salesforce, Zendesk, or whatever. And then we would then import, almost like what's called back testing. We would almost as if the AI existed 6 months ago, how well would it have answered these support tickets, right? And so I'm just going to cut and paste these right here, right into Command. So I'm going to create a new simulation. We're going to do a simulation on, let me back up. So under Command, we're going to create a new simulation. And we're going to test Pacioli here. And I'm going to just cut and paste those questions right in here. And then I'm going to queue them up. And so what's going to happen now, and you can do as many as you want, but what's going to happen now is it's now going to send these off to the agent as simulated questions, and the AI is going to obviously answer them. And then typically we'll have somebody who's managing this agent go in and check the answer. So in this case, it might be Scott or somebody on his team will go in and say, all right, did it answer this correctly? And this is a great way to spot check and understand how the AI responds, the tone of the response, the verbosity of the response, the accuracy of the response, all those things come into play, right? So right now you can see it's running. So this is another thing, again, seems trivial, but this is like the most important part. The first pillar is training, and we showed you how easy that was. The next one is testing, and we try to make that easy as well. And these are two things that in the world of algorithms and mathematics and machine learning which is what really drives generative AI at the end of the day, these are typically forgotten. It's almost like we were blinded by the fantastic user experience of ChatGPT, but we forgot what goes into making that experience so awesome. Remember, as simple as the ChatGPT experience is, right, which is what you want to bring to your products and what you want to bring to your customers and what you want to bring to your support team, what you want to bring to your sales team. They spend hundreds of billions of dollars training that model, right? And the reason is because that's how much energy and time it takes to build something that fantastic. Now, your responsibility is not to spend billions of dollars, but you have to spend some money to make sure that your AI agent, which is trained on your data, has high efficacy and actually can do the work, right? And actually can answer the question. So you can't just bypass this part, right? You can't just drag and drop documents into an agent or into a tool and hope for the best. It just doesn't work that way. And we realized this when we started launching agents that are actually doing work, that are actually doing, that have high ROI and actually deliver value. You have to do this work, but we make it super simple. All right, so now you're saying, okay, Rich, look, it's doing it. It's running this process. Now what? Well, again, all of our products are seamlessly integrated. So you toggle right back over to Copilot, which is the interface that your team is going to be using to test this AI, to use this AI agent. And there's all the conversations right here. And it's so basically, here's a simulated question, and here's the answer, right? And so now your team can go in here and go, oh man, okay, yeah, let me see this question, and okay, yep, that looks right, looks right. Yep, this is exactly right. This is how I would answer it as CFO or as vice president of finance, and then I would rate it good. So what that does, or I rate it bad, and I would give the AI, some feedback on what changes need to be made. So what's really cool about this experience here is that, how easy it was for me to upload new training, and for how easy for me to simulate some questions to then pass on to the person who manages the agent. So just by that, just like, I'll stop there for a second, just that first piece of basically building and updating an agent, you can start to see the formulation of where your current workforce needs to evolve to. So your support team and your person who runs support is now going to have to be the person who manages these agents and is going to do oversight, human in the loop, human feedback. And that person's also going to have to manage the documentation of what is being given to that agent for training, right? So you're starting to see the evolution of jobs, in certain roles. Same thing goes with whether this is a development agent for code, support, sales agent for sales outreach or qualification. It falls under the same category. And so when you think about this is kind of the new world. You have to think about how this affects your resources. And I'm going to real quick kind of dive over to the other way that you can actually get information into an agent is through connectors. So not everything lives in documents inside of SharePoint, OneDrive, Google Drive, wherever it might live for you guys. It also lives in existing SaaS products that you have, right? Whether it be Zendesk or Zoho or HubSpot, really doesn't matter. So this is where you would go in and you would connect to those third-party sources so that you could grab that data. It goes through the same process. It converts it, puts it into Markdown, and gets it ready for training. So think of this as like the central hub for all of your knowledge getting pulled in, basically made AI ready, and then pushed to your agent, and then ready for testing. So I have a few more that I actually have to do. So I'm going to just I'm just going to do it real quick because, like I said, I've got to present this next week. So I'm going to go drag the rest of these while we're talking here. So I'm just going to drag these two, and then let me see here. Actually, I'm just going to drag them all in again. Because I've got tons of them here. So this is kind of the life of training in AI. You can see like this is something that we would see all the time, where you have many documents coming in. You can see that we've already detected the duplicates. You can choose to overwrite or skip, right? So we can just skip these. And then we're going to go ahead and just go ahead and upload. Now you can also have AI organize it for you too. one of the cool things about Command is you can actually have AI generate your folder structure. And again, that's only for the human's benefit. The AI doesn't care what folder it's in, really. But for us, if you want to, let's say you have thousands of documents and you're like, Rich, these things are a mess. I'm dragging stuff over, and none of this makes sense, and they're all named weird, and I don't know what's in these documents, but I know it's valuable because it's in, it's in these folders. You could literally drag that entire, bunch over, have AI rename all of your files with the right name. So like, for example, like it renamed glossary.pdf, which nobody knows what that is, into glossary of IFRS terms and definitions. So the AI basically is going to reorganize your life, make everything easy, hopefully, and it's going to put it in the right folder, and it's going to get it ready for AI. So, I mean, if I was to kind of mark this first part of this presentation as like a goal for your company, is think about how you can get all of your data, all of your knowledge, not just what's in documents, not just what's in your systems, but also in the heads of your employees, and get them into vectors. That should be like mission number one. How do I get my entire world of my company, support, sales, processes, code? How do I get all of that into a vector space, into into not just one vector space, but multiple vector databases, multiple agents, so that it's ready for AI? And this is the biggest hill that you have to climb, honestly. And this is one of the reasons why nobody does it. This is one of the primary reasons why there's inertia and nobody launches AI agents, because you almost have to take care of your house first. And without a tool like Raia to do it as easy as I'm showing it to you as I'm talking, can you imagine doing this manually? It's just never going to happen, right? And there's no tool like this, really. Like, honestly, there's nothing out there that you can actually do this in a very systematic way. I mean, there's API connectors, there's companies that tie into your systems that connect one thing to another thing. But when you're talking about AI native training, this is something that's relatively unique. All right, so I'm going to actually take a break there, because what I showed you is some really cool stuff around training and testing, and kind of how the tool allows for you to do that. And then I want to just double check to see if there's any questions. And only one. All right, well, that's good. That's good, I guess, maybe. So, okay, we just have a question. Is there a way to link two documents so the AI can understand the relationship between them as I input the document, output document within the uploaded documents? Yes, you can. When you can merge documents, within the system here. So let me kind of show you, like, basically how that would work is, give me 2 seconds here. Yeah. So like you can merge documents through our merge technology. It's just the merge button here. But the true answer to your question is AI really doesn't care about that. AI is not going to necessarily. I mean, it'll care about it a little. So the benefit you have to merging two documents would be that there would be overlap in the chunking. So you're right in that way, in the sense that if you're uploading these documents as a merge document, which you can do, by the way, when you send it to the agent. So when I clicked here and I sent to the agent, you'll notice I might have went over too fast. You'll notice that I can also upload as one MD. So when I send it to AI Train, I can keep as separate files, or I can combine as one MD, and I can merge it that way. So that makes sure that those get chunked together. And basically what happens when it chunks it, it chunks it with overlaps. So it does kind of intimately tie those files or those chunks of data, as your point outlined. But it doesn't necessarily care too much around if there's two files that aren't merged, that were uploaded at different times, but they have the same kind of content, the vectors are going to be close together inside of the vector database. So you're not going to be so far. I guess my point is, you don't have to worry about merging documents as like a best practice. It's only a thing where maybe in a use case where you're like, I want to guarantee these are together, you could use the merge, but the vector database will take care of that nearest neighbor for you, no problem. So I wouldn't necessarily have to work. You don't have to worry about that as much. Is there a connector available for NetSuite? I believe so. Because I do know that we have a few clients on NetSuite, but maybe it's not activated here. But we do have a few on NetSuite. So I'm going to say yes, we have one, but I don't see it activated here for some reason. So I'll have to see why that's not the case. But yeah, we have done a few integrations with NetSuite around like support, cases, things like that. The detection of duplicate docs, is that based on doc name or actual content within? The duplicate docs are going to primarily be on file name, and is going to be the and folder. So basically, it's really just more of a kind of cursory duplication check. Obviously, when you upload the docs and we process them and convert them, and they're docs of a similar nature, it's not going to harm anything. You're just going to you're just going to have overlap of vectors, and it's not going to really matter when it ultimately gets to the vector database. So it kind of all washes out at the end. But obviously, file names is the primary one, because we assume that you're maintaining different file names, and we just want to make sure you don't upload duplicate documents. We do have within the product, we can scan. We do scan documents for things like for security reasons or for compliance reasons. We'll scan documents and alert you if there is like issues around security, or there might be content in there that might be flagged as maybe you don't want to send it, approval before you send it to AI agent. And in that same security scan and stuff like that, we will look for duplicate content as a flag. But when in the upload process, it's really a cursory thing. Okay, let's keep moving until there's more questions. So, all right. So basically, and just to kind of complete the, like let's say I'm pretending to be, CFO Scott, and I'm or somebody who works for him, and I've uploaded these documents. I've got my Pacioli agent here up and running. A lot of this data that we showed you, as far as like tracking how many words and how many tokens that might exist, and there's a lot of other functionality here as well. If I want to search inside these documents, I have a search capability. So if I need to find something, I want to make sure it exists, I could do that here. I can also maintain access for my team if I want to invite other people from my team to be able to upload documents, and of course you can granularly control what access they have. You can, at any point in time, you can download these documents as well. So let's say, for example, you want to download these markdown files that I just uploaded. You can download them as a zip, and you could upload those into Claude or ChatGPT, and you could actually use them in like your day-to-day work as well. So what's powerful about this is that these can not only be used for like an enterprise agent that's being deployed at scale, so that hundreds of people can access it and get value out of it, but you also converted this into an AI-friendly document that can be uploaded and used for your own purpose. Let's say you have a use case that you're playing around with. So again, it has a lot of value for a variety of situations. And then of course, one of the things that our customers love is the from a visibility perspective, is that again, most of our customers, they might have 10, 20, 30 agents, is to be able to look at an agent and see what's going on and how much activity is happening. And so like in this case, when I'm digging into the Pacioli, Scott and his team can come in here and they can go, okay, what's the activity like? I mean, are people using it? What are they saying? Right. Look at the feedback skills. How many thumbs up are we getting from the feedback? How many thumbs down? How many escalations have we had? How many, how many tokens are we burning? Right. And token management is going to be a big part of your future, whether you like it or not. Today, we kind of ignore it, but it's coming, right? You're going to get to the point where it's going to be a pretty significant line item on your expense, on your COGS. So, or on your, P&E or P&L. So, you want to monitor, like, you wake up one day and you're like, oh man, we're burning billions of tokens. Well, who's burning billions of tokens? And is it for good reason? Because token burn is good if you're actually giving high value. In this case, this token burn, which is pretty high, is great, because what basically we're doing is we're servicing hundreds of, 609 unique users, financial users across CSI, across all the operating groups, are now getting tremendous amount of value in working with Pacioli to answer the hard questions. Instead of having to answer, call up PwC or call somebody at head office or have a meeting about it for 3 hours with 4 people, you can get value out of this. So certainly the ROI is tremendous. But there are scenarios where you might deploy an agent and you're like, why is this token burn so high? And we're not really getting much value out of this thing. And you go back and you look at the configuration. So you might go back and you say, all right, what is this? What is this agent? Who built this agent? So again, you go back to our, agent management, right? You look at your agentic workforce. And let's say, for example, this revenue recognition agent was getting high token burn. You're like, what is going on? So you could click on it. The first thing you could do is you could check what model they're using. So you can come over here and say, oh, well, they're on a reasoning model, which is going to be higher token burn, at a medium effort. And maybe they don't need that. Maybe they could deal with a lower reasoning model. But you can also, toggle over and quickly look at the conversations and see what's going on there. So you can, hey, what does the average conversation look like? And then you can start to go, oh, I get it. I see now why this is high token burn is they're uploading a contract, which could be 100 pages, right? And they're building out a full analysis of that contract review. Now you could, so that's why you're getting the high tokens, because token is a word and every word you see here is a token, right? Now, as for me, and I'm looking at this going, well, this is high value. This is good tokens because I know how long it takes somebody in due diligence or somebody in finance to evaluate a contract and provide an analysis that, when we do an acquisition or even just when we are evaluating contracts on a day-to-day. And the amount of time it would take a human being to go through this, is probably not just 1 hour, it's probably multiple hours. So is it okay that we spent $2 on tokens or $1 on tokens to process this? Of course. That's easy math, right? But there are cases where you might look at this and it might not be the case, right? That you might want to reevaluate it. And, so what's powerful about this, right, is, when we talk about all these different use cases, and we're just looking at financial use cases here, building out accounting memos, the ultimate knowledge base agent, Pacioli, revenue recognition. These are valuable, very specific things that we do on a day-to-day that's saving time. And so when we build these agents, and in order to really get to make sure that we're saving time, we got to make sure that they're accurate. We got to make sure they're trained, and we got to make sure they're tested, right? So I can't emphasize that enough. All right, so let me pause there. And there's a couple more questions. Actually, one more question real quick. Can the uploading of documents and training be automated? For example, is it possible to put training documents into a dedicated OneDrive and get them ingested? Yes. So the answer is yes, we can integrate with OneDrive or SharePoint. So basically, as I mentioned, let me just toggle back over. You would set up your connectors. So let me just kind of toggle to a different org that actually got this set up here. So and go to SharePoint. So here, for example, we've linked to a SharePoint on this customer's within CSI on their 365. And it is linked to a specific folder. And when we sync up with this folder, it basically copies whatever's in that folder, those documents, right into a command. Command converts them and then puts them right into an agent. So yes, totally possible, very doable. I will say, and to your question at the end there, so if I go into SharePoint documents now, I'll just show you kind of what it looks like. These are all the documents that kind of came in from SharePoint. But I will say, to your question, is that when you're thinking about setting up your system on OneDrive or SharePoint, the only thing I would be concerned is you have to make sure that that's really dedicated for your AI agents, that it's very well known to be that way. I'm a huge security and compliance nut when it comes to this stuff, and I always get nervous when you're working inside of OneDrive, SharePoint, or your Outlook, and when people talk about connecting their personal workspace to AI agents, it makes me very nervous, because what you're basically doing when you trust an AI agent is and give it access. It has access to what you're giving it, and when you're doing it from within the firewall, from within the blanket of security that you trust within the 365 system, there's a higher likelihood of abuse or something happening, most likely accidentally, right? So if I just put up a folder on OneDrive and call it, financial training, and somebody drags and drops a document in there, not unknowingly, not knowing that it's linked to an AI agent that 500 people are accessing, because it's not obvious. It's just a little bit of a thing you have to consider, right? Same thing goes with when you connect to an agent. You say, sure, here you go, access my OneDrive. That agent now can do things inside of your OneDrive that you may or may not understand that you've authorized it to do. So everything that we do on the enterprise side, where we look at your 365 platform or any SaaS product that we integrate with, we come in from an authorized OAuth access point, which is approved by IT, that scopes and the endpoints are approved by IT, and we limit the AI's capability through that mechanism of security. And that's not always the case from within. So when we access SharePoint, we're coming into a folder that we've been restricted, that we've only been given read access, or in the case if that's all they want. These are things that come into play when you're talking about deploying these agents. We've made it very easy to set it up, but we are coming from a zero trust platform, right? Where we want to assume that you do not trust anything, and that we have to get authorized and we have to be authenticated the correct way, just like if you were to integrate any other third-party application. So there is a difference between the two approaches. But yes, the answer is, you can certainly hook the folder up and have it upload and get pushed through command. This is another reason why we kind of act as kind of a trusted bridge, because another thing that we have inside of raia command is we can put together rule sets to scan those documents. And one of the reasons, for example, and I just showed it to you, but I wanted to give time to explain. But one of the reasons why you saw this here, where it says failed, is because we are blocking the upload of these specific documents because they came from, they were not authorized in the rule set. So just because I hooked to that folder and I connected to it and I uploaded it, doesn't mean that we're just going to blindly let it pass. So there's things you can do, again, to decrease the likelihood of something getting pushed up. But like the best way to I always say, everything that we do within AI, the ecosystem of AI requires human in the loop at some point, and usually it's at multiple points. And what I call a human in the loop is essentially what I would consider projecting into the future workforce, in 5-10 years or whatever. It may not take that long, where when you're training an AI and you're doing oversight and you're doing testing, that's technically human in the loop, right? When you're evaluating the AI's work and you're saying, hey, it did a good job on that revenue recognition document, or it did a poor job, that's human in the loop. When you're connecting AI to a SharePoint drive and seeing those files being uploaded and being trained on, and you're getting an alert in your email that says, hey, somebody just uploaded these documents to your agent, that's human in the loop. When you have to approve the work of an AI before it gets submitted into your CRM, or before it follows up with a lead or whatever, that's human in the loop. So human in the loop is a very big part of this ecosystem, because every once in a while you have to check in and you have to monitor it, and our platform allows for that to happen. That's why we have escalation skills. That's why I have auditor skills. We have a lot of things that are baked into the platform to make it easy for you to get notified and or to get pinged for approval on these processes. That's super important to consider in your architecture, because you just don't want to set it and forget it and assume everything is going to be hunky-dory. All right, so let's keep going. I have to rename this to something other than Ask Me Anything, because nobody's asking me anything. So I'll keep going. Hey, you know what? I can do this all day. All right, so we're 1 hour in, and let me see how many people are still with us, which is awesome to see. So I know still going strong, about 70 people. That's awesome. Again, thanks for everybody who's new, who's just joined. I know that we started early, mostly for our European brothers and sisters in CSI, but usually I do these in various times on every other Wednesday. Just real quick, as a quick, because I don't know who joined midway, but as a midway break, if you are interested in playing around, request a license. Developer program is free for CSI people. You are limited in the number of tokens you can burn, because obviously that costs money, but it gives you enough to play around with and experiment with our platform. You'll get a license key that you can use both for raia, the raia CX platform, as well as the command platform that I'm showing today. So if you have any questions, you can just hit up support. They will happily guide you. And if you want to get access to our training and learn more, go to docs.raiaai.com. Again, this is really more for your guys' insight. And we're not done. We have a whole nother hour, and we're going to keep going here, but this is just like a midway in case you joined us late. And then the other thing I wanted to highlight real quick is what I did at the beginning of the show here was if you are in any of these cities, please go to this website or scan this QR code. And we're doing workshops. We're continuing our world tour, visiting CSI BUs and portfolios. If you have a portfolio event that's in a completely other city in the next 6 to 12 months, let us know. We're happy to come out and speak. We'll be at the TSS events. We'll be at the Topicus events. We're doing a hackathon with Jonas Group out in London. So, and we'll be attending a lot of different portfolio events. Happy to come out, happy to talk about AI, talk about what's going on, but also happy to do workshops, which is what I love the most, which is getting our hands dirty and getting in there, building out use cases. So please, all this is available on our website as well at raiaai.com. As a CSI company, our goal is to continue to expand and have agents in every single BU, as soon as we can to accelerate this deployment. So thank you for joining. If you just joined us, of course, this will be recorded as well and available on our YouTube. This is my number 3, so the other 2 are on there as well. They're all a little bit different in the sense that I showcase different things. So feel free to share. All right, let's get back to it. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to move over and I'm going to for the technical people on the room, because I've mostly talked about knowledge base here, but we're all software companies. So let's go ahead and talk about, I think I spun up an org here to play around with. So let's talk about, what we could do on the software side. Now, we use raia extensively. Our dev team, we have about 20 developers that range from our core product to our, which is like basically CX, and then we have a development team, and that's led by Thomas, that does most of our, or does all of our family of suite of products, command, control, and so forth. And then we have a bunch of people who do prompt engineering and testing and training. So we have what we call an agent factory that is available for any CSI company to leverage. We like anything else, we have some professional services element to our company where we help you accelerate and develop and build agents, but you could do it on your own as well. But that team is basically trained on our platform, and we're just churning out agents every day. And doing so across all of CSI. So we use this extensively for a variety of our development cycle. Now, there's really 2 things to consider when you're developing product or maintaining an existing product. You obviously have your IDE or your development environments, your CLIs, and all those things that you're working with. And I'm sure there's a wide variety here on the call. Some of your developers are using Claude Code or Cursor or something like that. Some of your developers might be using a VS and a plugin with GitHub Copilot. Whatever the tool that they're using, we don't do that. So that that is something that we don't necessarily touch, but we know that exists and we use that as well, right? We're using Cursor, Claude Code, we use VS, we use a lot of tools on our side to develop our products as well. Now, what complements that is having an agentic workforce that is trained on a multitude of the components of building a product, because building a product isn't just logging on to your coding tool and using generative AI to help do code completion, right? Building a product means that you have documentation, you have meetings, you have a project plan, you've got legacy code, you've got schemas, you've got all this other data that you need to have at your fingertips when you're actually building a product. So when I'm building products and our team is building products, we have a multitude of agents that we use that are trained on a variety of different things within our business. So I'll show you a couple where we've trained these AI agents on our code, on our schema, and so forth. So this is a example of one that we built out, and again, it works exactly like the Pacioli agent. It works exactly like your support agent. It's going to work exactly like any other agent that you build. This is the kind of and I think the elegance of this is that no matter what your agent you're building, it's like a stem cell. It's gonna basically have all the same components. Some components you may not use, but they're all basically pulling in from the same architecture. And just like a stem cell, if you want it to be a bone, a heart muscle, or hair, you decide that. And that's just based on its training, right? So in the case of code, what we basically did is we hooked it up to our GitHub and a variety of other sources, and we pull that in through command, right? We connect to those services through command, and so it just updates it. And the first question you're going to ask is, well, why put it in a vector store? Why is it not just good enough to have it in my IDE? Because basically how the IDEs work is they're kind of using a very similar approach. They're doing a search, kind of a grep, if you will. They're searching your code base, they're finding keywords, they're finding matches, and they're bringing back that into the context window, and they're using that along with a coding model like Codex or Claude Code to then generate code for you, right? But it's more of a search and find context window to LLM architecture, which is awesome, and it's great for speed for speeding up coding. This is kind of a complementary thing where you're basically saying, I'm not just going to upload the entirety of my code base, but I'm going to upload a bunch of other documents and other stuff that's not necessarily in my repo. And it gives me more context to look at, right? Now, it also is great when you're building out, like if you're accessing legacy code, right? Like, let's say you have a legacy product over here that you're trying to modernize a portion of it, or you're trying to use it as some sort of baseline, and you're building something new in your IDE. Well, then it probably does make sense to have, because you're basically working with two code bases. So you can't, inside of, let's say you're using Cursor or Git Claude Code, it's harder to then, as you're coding this new tool in a modernized way, to access legacy information, right? So you can actually connect your IDE using MCP through our product. So like, for example, I built out this agent. It's trained on the code, and one of the skills that I'm going to use is MCP. And so when I set up MCP, what I'm basically doing is I can now go into my IDE VS Code, and I can point it to this MCP, and then I can ask it questions as I'm coding with my IDE, which is awesome. So if I have a question that I want to ask this agent, I can do so, and it complements the other agent that you're using, or the other AI model that you're using, which is really the coding model. So this is, again, like more like a knowledge base to coding. So what you'll find is, as you start to kind of evolve and becoming AI native, you'll find that you're going to be talking to multiple agents when you're doing tasks. And of course, that's what we call the agentic workforce. So, right now, most of us are using tools, and typically a tool has one LLM, and it's a one-to-one relationship, and it's very chat oriented. But when you're talking about a multitude of orchestrating across an agentic workforce, which is where we're all headed, you have to start thinking thinking more about, I'm connecting to multiple parties, right? So now what I'm going to show, and so this is kind of an example of how I would use it, right? I'll come into this agent and I'll say something like, I'm debugging an API skill, right? And I'm just showing you this from a visual perspective. Typically, this would show up in my IDE, and I could go right to the code and I could start making adjustments. But essentially, what we're talking about here is what is possible now that this has been trained on my code. So, like one thing that you probably wouldn't do in your IDE is say something like, "Hey, I need to build out a knowledge base article for a developer on how our API skill works, provide some pointers or some insights on code, but make it more training." I'm a horrible prompter, by the way, oriented. So what I'm trying to show now is, all right, okay, I've got this thing trained on my code, and I forgot what I uploaded in this agent. I did it kind of late last night, but I think I might have uploaded some documents. Maybe I didn't. I think it might just be pure code. So what I'm trying to do right now is say, hey, I need to create a document. I just hired a new developer, and he's been tasked with a Jira task, and I need to get this guy this in the Jira ticket. I want to give him more information than just say, hey, go up and upload. I need you to update our API skill to do X, Y, and Z. I want to give him something to work with. So I just created this nice little, guide, if you will. Now he could obviously go into this agent and ask this question. Is he going to do that? Is he going to think to do that? Maybe not. Maybe not. Not all of us are trained to think about that way. But this is a massive lift for me. So when I toggle, so all I got to do now is go in here and go, all right, this is the basics of how my API skill works. Now think how valuable this is for complementing a Jira ticket or an Epic or even documentation internal, or you name it, new developer, or maybe you hired a developer, outsource a developer, and yeah, it's really going to town here. And then this can be downloaded as a markdown that can be put into your just like a Claude MD file, or basically into a skill, into Claude code, right? So like I can download this right here as an MD, right? Boom, and then you have it basically as something you could include in your knowledge base inside of your repo. You could download this as a PDF, as a doc, and upload it into your Jira ticket, whatever, right? And then we can keep going here. We can have, we can create suggestions. We can create, we can say, hey, how would you suggest doing this, right? So let's say we wanted to, I say like, how would you suggest we build out an SDK for this API and our API. Right. So you could really kind of expand on this. So I guess I'm basically showing you another completely different use case where I'm working through a lot of the development cycle that's not necessarily all coding, right? I might be a product manager, I might be a QA person or whatever. So this brings me to my second point, where we use AI tremendously. So we have a support team, right? And our support team is great, but they don't have access to our code. They don't have Claude code. They're not developers. But what happens is if there's a support bug, or if there's something that comes in as a technical issue, and sometimes it comes in from a log, right? So an error happens in our log, and it says error 5570, Kubernetes, whatever. It just says something that's relatively complicated for a lot of people to understand. What they can do with that is they basically just grab that, put it into the AI agent, and it then finds out and debugs that, and then creates the Jira ticket for us, and with all the details, and then shows our developer or our DevOps team where the issue might be, and how to fix it, which is awesome. So again, what we're trying to do here is expand the capabilities of your existing team. So what the person that used to do tier 1, tier 2 support, that had to monitor live chat all day or monitor emails all day can now put an agent in front of them. The AI can handle a large majority of those tier 1, tier 2 tickets. They still can be the person that gets escalated to, but then they can take that part of their day that they used to sit and deal with triage. And now, because they have an agent that has been trained on code and on more of the complex scenarios, they can take the more complicated escalated tickets, put into the AI, and actually generate a development plan within Jira or within the ticketing system of choice, and then give your developers basically what needs to happen and where the potential bug is, instead of an error code and a very generic, hey, this isn't working. So again, this is the power of expanding your human workforce is expanding their capabilities, right? Like you can all feel it, just with ChatGPT or Copilot or even a product like raia at your fingertips. You now have capabilities that you didn't have before, right? That's like the magic of AI. Is like, man, I now have the ability, like for the first time in my life, I can actually cook a meal, right? Because I have ChatGPT that can guide me through it. Because unfortunately, even though recipes seem like very easy things to follow, I suck at recipes, but I can literally tell ChatGPT, like, speak to me like I'm a 6-year-old trying to make dinner, right? And I can lower the bar for me, and I can tell it what ingredients I have and what I don't have, and so it can kind of put together the recipe for me exactly and personalized to my level of expertise, but also to what I have in front of me. That applies to everything we're doing. So as you expand your human workforce, and along with your AI agentic workforce, you start to see your agentic workforce do a lot more work, but allow your human workforce to be human in the loop for a lot broader of a spectrum of what it can. So now your product manager and people that typically were not even coders are now building out specs and building out prototypes and even becoming developers, through agentic coding. Your tier 1 support person that used to just basically pass on the ticket with very minimal capability to help debug can now debug at a fine-tuned granularity, tell you exactly where in the product it's breaking. So there's capabilities here that can be leveraged. All right, so let me toggle over, and all right, we got another question. So we're on a good pace, one every 20 minutes. All right, so I'll just answer this question. How do RAG-based systems like raia ensure correct and up-to-date answers when dealing with nuanced enterprise knowledge, where documents are often mix of structured, unstructured, duplicated, and versioned content, and careless ingestion can lead to retrieval or outdated contradictory information, and is duplicate or conflicting content handled only at the file ingestion stage, or also detected and resolved across multiple documents after indexing? It's a great question. This is one of the biggest challenges we have, because not we have as raia, but we have as human species, is that we are relatively unorganized, and there's a lot of chaos when it comes to information moving in and out. I mean, I think the answer to this question is kind of two-part. I think we have to do a better job of organizing our data. I think this is something that we never really cared about in the past. I mean, I think most CSI companies I talk to, their knowledge bases are out of date because they never really thought it was critical to the business, right? Some people log into knowledge bases and read knowledge base articles, but at the end of the day, most people just email support. So it tends to kind of decay, right? A lot of times we upload documents and we start off with good intentions in SharePoint and we have it really well organized, but eventually those folders and those folder names start to kind of get a little bit loosey-goosey, and we're not following the same best practices, and suddenly we wake up and we have a desktop full of folders that are named weird things, and we have a SharePoint that's unorganized, right? So this is the nature of chaos that humans have kind of dealt with, and through habit and through kind of need, we've kind of memorized how to find those documents. Now, as we evolve to AI doesn't really care too much about the organization of it, but it does care about, okay, yes, if it's being trained on data that's being has an out of date shelf life or needs to be replaced, then certainly it's good practice to keep it up to date. The reality is that a lot of that depends on the systems that you currently have. Now, if you've linked your AI to your knowledge base and said, let's say, for example, inside of Zendesk or Team Support or something like that, and you know that that's being updated, if that's the source of truth, well, then your AI will be updated, right? It's consistently in sync. So our system will go in, it'll update the tickets or update the knowledge base articles, and it will be updated in the vector store, and everything's great. Now, if you're depending on like file versions or a variety of different files inside of SharePoint, a variety of different projects, then it gets a little bit more difficult, because there's no real way for AI to know that this file is the source of truth and this file is not. That being said, you know, just by creating a better folder structure, or by having that human in the loop that uploads the files into command, you know, that gives you a higher confidence that they're uploading and keeping the AI up to date. But the reality is that just like any other system, you know, you could ask the same question. How do we know the CRM is up to date? How do we know that SharePoint is up to date? How do we know that Zendesk is up to date? You know, that reliability, that responsibility does rely on how you set up those systems and how you manage them. That being said, you certainly, the backstop to this is human feedback, and making sure that you are when people are using the AI agent and they're getting answers, and having somebody oversee that, whether it's an AI agent overseeing it or whether it's a human overseeing it, and looking for, you know, out-of-date information or looking for out-of-date documents, certainly that's the backstop to this as well. So it's a combination of better organization up front, right? The quality of data that goes into the AI is going to be a direct correlation to the quality of data that comes out. And then oversight and human feedback is another component of it, right? Is seeing how people respond and monitoring that. So that's why we have in the products and the full life cycle of the experience of the conversation with AI, we not only have human feedback, but we have rating system embedded in our live chat products, you know, so that you can basically say, okay, did it solve this person's problem or not, right? So you can see efficacy there. You can see oversight efficacy. And then, of course, at any point in time within the command product, you can search for documents, you can version documents, you can look for things that are outdated. You can do a full, complete overhaul, which is something that we do quite often with our support agent. We'll clean out the vector store and recreate it and make sure that it only has new documents. And that would be a nightmare if I didn't have command. But with command, I have all my documents in there. I can remove the ones that are outdated. I can make sure that I look at and make sure that they're all the right, that the documents that are in there are the latest version. And I have one central data storage that I can look at, and then I can just re-upload with a click. So, you know, we've made it as easy as I think is possible, you know, short of obviously, you know, having a much more strict pipeline on the customer side. But that's something that typically we can't control anyway. Really, it's up to the customer on how they do their data pipelines. But so if you have a source of truth, I would tie it to the source of truth and just make the source of truth exactly that, the source of truth. So, you know, implement due diligence, implement, you know, a little bit more stringent, some guidelines, a little bit more for your team, whoever's responsible for your agent, you know, implement better habits on how to maintain those documents. Great, that's a great question. And I showcased a lot of that earlier in the call. I don't know if you joined us late, but certainly if you want to watch the video again, most of that is in the command product, as well as in the Copilot product where we have human feedback. All right, we're at the 9:30 mark. Let's keep rocking. So I showed you kind of how we do some coding stuff, how we would basically, you know, deal with that. And so let me also show you kind of a little bit on the, let me dive into some skills, because I think one of the things that I think is very powerful that even our own customers kind of don't really kind of keep up to date with that, but I think is very powerful, is how we implement skills and what they do. So one of the things that we built out for us is we have our own, you know, CRM system that we built using AI, partially because we wanted to experience the agentic approach to building software that not only that we use, so in an effort to eat our own dog food, but as a way to become AI native and AI first. And so one of the key components of that product, or that CRM system, is that we have an AI agent that's trained on all things our CRM has. So it's constantly being updated with and trained on our meetings, our customer information, everything else, everything you could possibly imagine, right? So part of being this agent, requires a lot of different skills. So I'll just kind of use this one as a place where we can talk about different skills, because we leverage quite a bit of skills for this one. So let me just kind of go down the path here, because again, we've talked about testing and training as two major pillars that we accelerate and make life easier for you. But now let's talk about when you actually have an agent up and running, how do we make it easier for you to give it agency? Because an agent isn't just instructions and training, right? That's the knowledge. That's just like giving a human a brain, but no way to talk, no way to really move, no hands, no legs, right? Just basically able to think about things, but not even really able to answer, right? Or contribute. So we're going to walk through just the basic skills here. So the first one that's very important, and this is something that is very important, not only because you guys are software companies and you're probably going to use it more than anybody else, but it's also important from a philosophical, is our API. So we have an API, a very robust API that you can visit on our docs website that I linked, our docs.raia website that I linked in the beginning of the presentation. In here, you can kind of look at our entire API and how robust it is. So we give you full control over everything. So everything I'm showing you in our products, you have access to doing programmatically. So if you wanted to do anything that I showcased today, in any sort of fashion, you could, in theory, build this, natively right into your products, and then still leverage the fact that you still have it all managed and you have that command and control element. So the first, obviously the first one is the API skill, where you can create different API keys for different reasons, and it's at the agentic level. So it's not an API key for your org. That's separate from this. This is an API for the specific agent. So if you wanted to API to one of your agents and go code access to that agent and build an interface to that agent, you could easily do that by downloading our API, Open API JSON, uploading it into Claude Code, and build a full interface to your agent. It's very easy to do. So you have that full flexibility. So really cool. And we want to be interoperable. We want to work with your systems. We want to accelerate your ability to develop agents. Another skill is the Copilot skill. So we've obviously seen Copilot today, but you can actually configure Copilot in a variety of ways. You can make it, there's a lot of different things you can create here within Copilot. Like you can create, you can allow for, you can turn off settings for users of different things. If you want to allow them to upload files, if you want to auto archive chat messages, if you want to include the ability for them to upload files and include in training. You can add buttons to encourage certain pre-built prompts. So Copilot has some really, some configuration, and we consider that a skill because it has an interface and all that, but you can configure it for your use. The email skill is example of another one of those skills that comes out of the box, automatic. So what's cool about this is, let's say I want to, I'm going to just create a new email for this guy. So I'm going to create CRM at raia. So I've connected my domain to the org. So I'm just going to call this raia CRM. This is just like a default message if somebody were to send out a default message. And I'm going to create this skill. And so right now what I've done is I've basically made this same agent and I've given it an email. So now I'm just going to hit test, send a test, so it'll send a test to me. But what I can do here is I can, just as if I were to go over here and ask the CRM a question. So I'm going to ask a question like, who are our main contacts at Click Dimensions, which is a customer of ours. So I can use Copilot to talk to this agent, obviously, because Copilot is our default internal database, our internal human user interface to the agents. So it just queried our CRM and grabbed all the contacts, because I needed to know, right? Now, maybe I'm not on this Copilot. Maybe I want to email it. So I'm going to do the same thing. I can come over here. I'll just say, email it. I'll say question, who are the contacts at, click dimensions. So one of the things, one of the points I'm trying to make here is, and I'll send that off. I'll send that, that email goes off. I'll come back to it. But one of the points, so yeah, sorry, I just sent off this email here. So you can see, sorry, I didn't change it. So I just sent off this email here. Who are my contacts and click dimensions, right? So we'll wait on that to come back to me. But another thing is, like, an AI agent can live anywhere. So let's say I wanted to have it live inside of my CRM system, right? So, this is a great, so I'm just going to quickly toggle over to our CRM system, and I can have AI, I can have that same agent live, here, right? Who are the best contacts, like dimensions. So I think the point I'm trying to make here, and the visually, is your AI agent can live anywhere. It can live embedded in products, right? It can live out of the box. You automatically, it can live in our systems here, right? In Copilot, or if it's publicly facing, it can live as live chat. It can live as SMS, and it can live as email, right? So basically, I emailed it, and it got me what I needed to know, as a result. So what's cool about the concept of building out agents and once you have an agent that actually works, is you can see the evolution of that agent being like, okay, it actually has a mind of its own. It lives with among us, right? I can integrate it with Teams, right? Let's do that. Let me see if I can log into my Teams here. Just bear with me. Wasn't planning on doing this, but I'll let it rip. Hopefully I remember my password here. But yeah, so if you have an agent that you want to integrate inside of your, your Teams, inside of your, Google Mail, or whatever you're using, right? I mean, most of you probably use Teams, but you can actually have it living inside here as a channel that you can connect with, right? In fact, like the Pacioli, in the Pacioli world, that actually is connected to our teams within in corporate. They access that quite a bit through that interface. So now extrapolate that to, all right, what about, can I also, have that AI in a workflow, programmatically, maybe access it through an automated workflow, of course. So it doesn't have to have an interface. It doesn't have to have a human user interface. It can live, in a variety of places. It can be behind the scenes. It could be facing your customers. But I think another thing I wanted to kind of show you, which is very powerful, and if you haven't already noticed it. So I contacted my agent via email. I contacted my agent through my CRM, and I through a live chat interface on my CRM, and I've contacted directly inside of Copilot. Well, what you see here in Copilot is, because I'm in admin mode, I can see all of those questions coming in. So, so I saw my first one that I posted in Copilot. So you can see up here, it says via Copilot. Then I posted one on email. So it says here via email, right? And I can see who emailed me this, right? Like I can see the person over here, and that obviously was me. And I can also see it through live chat. So this is where we talk about kind of the command and control element of your agent. So now think about when you're deploying agents. Like, do you want to build all this stuff that allows you to have omni-channel control, management, testing, training? all the things that we've talked about for the last hour and a half, which are just honestly what I would call your ante into getting into the agent game. Like literally from a security compliance, from a confidence perspective, from a management perspective, that before you deploy one agent, much less 10 or 100, this is like this is the minimal viable amount of work that you have to have. So you have a question. Are you going to build all of this? Are you going to buy this from some third-party vendor that's going to basically charge you out the yin yang to be part of it? Or is this something that could be valuable that you use out of the gate on day one, like with raia, knowing that it's a CSI product, knowing that it's not going to go away, knowing that it's going to be used by hundreds of other CSI companies, and it's only going to get better. And then you can focus on actually doing what you really want to do, is not building all this meat and potato stuff. You want to get right to dessert. You want to actually build agents that are going to do work for you. You want to do, start focusing on the things you want to deploy for your clients. But think about how much of this, the fact that you can deploy an agent and be like, oh, it doesn't matter how we talk to it. I have one singular place where I can monitor it. I know everything that's going on in my agentic workforce in one singular place. I can toggle over and I can actually look at its answers, right? I can give it feedback. I can download. I can understand, right? So I can download this as an Excel if I need to use it for something. I can toggle between agents very easily. I want to see what my other agents are doing. Let's see what my event promoter agent's doing. Oh, look, my event promoter agent just had a conversation with Sean, right? And and guess what? This all happened through my agent emailed Sean asking if he's going to come to the event, and it responded to Sean. So Sean had a great experience. He gave an answer. He got what he needed. We gave him the links. I didn't do anything, but I could come in here and say, yeah, that was a good job, agent. Good job. You automated part of my life that I used to have to do, right? Because we're sending out thousands of invitations to different CSI companies to come to our events. I don't want to do that. The AI is trained up. It knows how to do that. I can go in here and I can look at what people are saying, what people are asking, and I can learn from that, right? So again, part of the job here is that when you start to build out, and then I can go over here and I can say, you know what, I want to go in here and as a developer, I'm going to put my developer hat on, and I now need to start building queries. So I've got my database, I got my agent here that's trained on my database, right? And then I want to go over here into my financial analyst agent, and I want to start asking about my financial data and start working on my QSR, right? And so it's all about having a workforce no different than a human workforce, where you can task work, give it work to do, know that it's being trained and tested on that work and understands what to do, right? So it's the amount of time and energy it takes, not just to build this workforce, but to manage it is what we're concerned about. Because building it is one thing. We're all victims of being, hyped up by the magic of AI, of going out, building prototypes and building applications and, building, oh, Claude Code, look how easy it was for me to spin up this thing or spin up that thing. But what we don't realize is, fast forward, is like, okay, how do we manage this? How do we delegate management of this to the domain experts? If we're building a support agent, who's going to actually build it and train it? Is it going to be the developer? Probably not. It's going to be the support team, right? If we have a financial analyst agent, who's going to build that? Probably not a developer. It's probably going to be the finance team. And do they have the capability of accessing the platform? Are they Claude Code users? Probably not, right? They need a more reasonable place, a central place. And if I'm a GM or if I'm a portfolio manager and I want to have oversight and command and control over my workforce, do I want it to be being developed in 5 different ways with 5 different tools? Probably not, right? So plan for the future accordingly, using tools like this. Now, I'm not saying this is the only thing you have to use, but I am saying that building out agents, we all know that. There's nobody arguing that. You want to empower your entire team to build agents. I'm not sure everybody knows that. I think a lot of people are still looking at the developers. And unfortunately, I think that's probably not the greatest place to look, because developers are busy. They're building our products that we sell that make us money, right? They're the primary drivers of future revenue. They need to be focused on customer value and building out those features and maintaining our products as they are. And certainly our tool can help in that as well. But when we're building out support agents, or we're building out sales agents, or we're building out operational agents, we don't want to distract them and pull them into the fold and have them start building stuff from scratch that ultimately they're going to have to support, right? And unfortunately, in the age of AI, I don't think it behooves us, and I certainly don't think you're going to get the best benefit of AI going off and buying stuff from a third party, because you're going to be limited. It's not going to be specific to what you want. It's going to be limited in the ability for you to manage and control it. And so, basically with raia as being an internal project, an internal product within CSI, being built specifically for VBUs and portfolios and OGs, this is exactly what our vision was. It's like, you still have that full control, that capability to do what you want, and not be wake up in 5 years and go, oh man, we should have never gone with these vendors. We're locked in. We should have never let 30 people build 300 different agents on 30 different platforms. We're now in the same mess we've always been in, which is managing the sprawl of technology. Just because everybody got excited, nobody thought to think about organizing this ahead of time. And oh, by the way, we're kind of in no man's land because we're the only ones that did it this way. And maybe 5 of my guys left, because they went off to get better jobs once they learned how to build AI tools. And now I'm stuck and I've got to clean up this mess. And I don't have any partners, and I don't have any other BUs or any other people within CSI I can lean on for help, because we decided to do it in a fragmented way. And our vision at raia, and I guess I'm getting off the topic here of showing you, but my vision at raia is that if we're all building off the same platform and we're all leveraging the same techniques and we're all learning how to do it, then there's so much interoperability from talent and from sharing best practices, and maybe even sharing agents, which you can do right in the platform. So I'll bring it back. So let's say for example, a great example of this is one of our most one of a popular agents, which I have to find here, is our NDA redline agent. So this is an agent we built that redlines documents. Okay, and so we trained it on CSI, basically general NDA. We actually used a couple different operating groups to come up with the very generic set zone, but it wasn't easy, right? Because there's a lot of conditions that we require. So you can see here there's 80 documents that we train this NDA on, this NDA redline agent, right? And so and you could come in here and use it in Copilot. You could come in here and say, all right, I want to evaluate a document, and so now I've got to go find one. So I'm going to go find one here. And you can upload an NDA document, and I hope I can find one here. Here we go. Let me see. Maybe. Actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to say sample NDA. I'm going to download one. Just why not? See if I can get one on here. Yep, here we go. So I'm just going to download a sample NDA. But obviously you would get this from, like, if you're doing an acquisition or something like that, and the acquiring company is going to want to, do it, understand, or it sends you an NDA. So I'm just going to drag and drop the NDA, and I'm just going to say, evaluate this NDA. Now, what's cool about this is, it'll evaluate it. It's gonna basically, come back and tell me, what it needs to be redlined. Now, but we actually built this product, or we built this agent for, and we started working with some companies. We're like, hey, it'd be really cool is if we actually, created, using AI, an interface to this agent. Because what we really want is, like any other good lawyer would want, is they want to work inside of their Microsoft Word, right? So they don't necessarily want to deal with an NDA, inside of Copilot or a Markdown file or whatever, because they have to go back and forth. They have to kind of share, that NDA is going to be redlined back and forth, and so forth, right? So one of the things we wanted to do was build an interface for that product. And let me just log into it real quick. And again, this is really what I think this is a new dynamic to what we're going to start experiencing. So you'll see that now it's kind of bringing back. Now you'll say, God, that's ugly. Well, it's meant to be ugly because actually we didn't really build this. You see it's coming back as what's called a JSON object. It's coming back kind of in a coded way because we actually don't use, this AI is basically trained to deliver it back for a product, which I'll show you right now. So basically what we did is we're saying, hey, you know what would be really great is a human user interface that somebody could use to actually view these red lines. Because red line is a completely different use case, right? So it's not a support agent. It's not a coding agent. This is a legal agent. And so we had AI build out this interface to this agent, and really only for human consumption. And oh, by the way, you know, this is a product that you get with the raia platform. In fact, all of these products I showed you are all included. You know, and we don't do seat licensing. We don't do how many number of agents you have. You know, we have a very fair use. We have a fair pricing, which is usage based, and because obviously AI is driving this, and AI is a usage based product. So, like, if you wanted to deploy your NDA agent, you could then basically do exactly what we did in Command, right? You go to admin. You go to settings. You connect your agent. So I connected the NDA agent right here, right, to the system, which is in raia CX. I come over to documents, and now I can see it redline, and we can kind of showcase what it does in a visual manner here, and then I can export this as a doc with red lines, and it will actually build a Word doc with native red lines. And I don't know if I can show you this. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to screenshot it and then drag it into the browser because I can't really share my. And it did this. This is my Word doc that I just created. So you can see it's actually, you know, ready for go. I mean, you can literally send this back to the, you know, as a red line doc, no different than if a human did it. Send it back and say, hey, here's our red line changes. Now, why am I showing you this? Maybe most of you are probably not legal people, but this is, I think, the future of agentic workforce. You're going to have some of your agents that you can use a very plain vanilla interface. You can use live chat, you can use email, SMS, or you can use like a raia Copilot, or you can use Teams. That's what I would call like your generic human user interface. But then there's some agents you're going to build that you're going to want to have a very specific interface for, where you're going to want to drag and drop documents, or you're going to want to have this like red line, or you're going to have, you know, there's going to be something that you're going to want the human to have a little bit more power over that agent. And this is exactly the power of AI, is that we spun this up using AI. So AI wrote this application, but it wouldn't be able to do anything. It wouldn't have the brains, if you will, the core of it, without the agent itself. And then if I go in and change the training of the agent, then the application automatically obviously works differently, because now it's sending this document to the agent. It's waiting for the agent to send it back to it. And this is the flow, I think, that you have to start thinking about. You know, when you're thinking about your agentic workforce, it's not just about agents living inside of your personal tools. This is about agents that have their own interfaces, they have their own workflows, they have their own job. This is where everything's at. All right, so let's. We only have a few more minutes, so let's answer some questions. And I don't know if there's any. Oh, one more. Yep, right on cue. Every 20 minutes. So at the previous session, we touched the topic of segregation. The example was a chatbot who can be questioned about multiple products. We talked about maintaining separate agents for each product. If there are multiple active versions of these products, would it be good idea to split these products' expert agents further down to experts of specific versions of these products? How do you make these mixture of experts routed to a single chatbot that is facing the users? This is a great question. I mean, this is something we get quite a bit. You know, we're talking about the complexity of managing not just multiple products, but multiple versions of multiple products, right? And so we're going through this right now with one of our clients, data mine. And so It really, I mean, the first question I would ask is how different is product 3.0 to 3.1? You know, is it one document of release notes that differentiates 3.0 and 3.1, and 3.0 and 3.1 are basically 95% the same, and there's a differentiation, you know, just like a diff of a document? Then you know, that's one element that it would make me decide differently on how I would architect it. If it's completely different and a big upgrade or a completely new version, then yeah, I would probably lean toward separating out the vector store. So I don't know if this was clear, but every agent that you create has its own isolated vector store. So this brings me to a good point, which is this is another reason why that command exists. So in command, you can set up your core knowledge base that all your products share, no matter what version, in one folder or in one project. And then you could have each version have its own project within your command. And then you can point and publish any documents to any agent you want. So because we made it so easy to manage knowledge inside of command, I would typically defer to having one agent per upgrade. That's my gut, or version. Unless it's like one file, or if it's a 5% scenario, well, then you could probably maintain it, and then you could basically route inside of your instructions. You would say, for 3.0 questions, you know, route to this file for instructions, and for 3.1, route to this file for instructions. And you're giving the AI some clarity on what they need to think about when answering questions on what version they're dealing with. And of course, the other element of that is the first thing that you should do in your instructions is either ask the user to put in a version. You can do that multiple ways. You could actually force a form fill. So let me show you that real quick. We only have a few more minutes, but I can quickly show you kind of how I would do it. You can, inside of your agent, so let's say you're, let's say I'm doing it for this agent here. So inside your agent, if you're doing live chat support, you could go into the live chat skill, and you could basically set up a predefined, you could define conversation. Yeah, you could ask questions right before. So you could ask for, you know, you could obviously ask them for their email, right? That would be nice to have in case you wanted to follow up. And you could also ask a custom say what version. Now, this is assuming that you don't know their version and you're not using our SDK. You know, but if you wanted to grab this and give it, and then the AI will put it into, you know, you can make it a select field if you want. You can say, you know, version 3, you know, version 4. And so what's cool about this is what you're doing is you're forcing the you know, if it's through a live chat interface, you're forcing the person to answer the question first, and then what it allows it to do is that goes into the context window. So now the AI has been given directive to say, okay, this guy's on version 3, act accordingly. And so this is another great, you know, again, part of what we're building is for all these scenarios. So the scenario you just outlined, we've been asked about and have deployed agents for multiple BUs, right? Because we all share the same issue. So you could set it up to where you can force the person to tell you that version, then tell the AI in the instructions, if they say they're version 3, these are files that you need to pay attention to. If they're version 4, these are files that you want to make sure you pay attention to. But if that becomes part of a bigger problem to manage, and because there's more and more differentiation, then just have multiple agents, and then just have one agent that directs it to the right agent. So you have one agent that's your live chat, and if they're a version 3, they'll orchestrate the questions to your version 3 agent. So again, a lot of ways to solve that problem. But great answer, or great question, and great answer, I think, too. So we're almost done. So man, I appreciate everybody sticking with us here. You know, we lost a few good people during the 2-hour marathon here, but this will be recorded. We'll upload it. Thank you for all the AI bots as well that attended. Those were my biggest fans. They stay with me the whole time. And hopefully we'll get more of these out the door. As I told you, we're going on the road here. So for those who joined us late, before you leave us, let me just share that one more time. We'll be in a lot of different cities. We'll also be continuing to do these virtual sessions as well. If you happen to be near these areas, or you have colleagues near these areas in your company, please share this link, events.raia.run.tour. You can RSVP. Some of these spaces have limited availability. We typically try to keep our groups a relatively reasonable size, so that we can actually do a workshop. But we'll also be, if you have a portfolio, and you want to ping your portfolio manager and have us come out, and you have an event and you want to have some AI attend, we're happy to do that, virtually or in person if it makes sense. So we do that quite a bit for all the operating groups. And of course, if you are looking to get started and play around, please take the time to go request your developer license. It's available for CSI companies only. So you do put your email in. We just double check against the CSI database, and then we'll issue a license key to you. It's a limited as far as tokens go, but it gives you enough to play around. And then if you need any support, you have our guide and training. We have multiple training available to you, and you can obviously learn quite a bit by just playing around. I would encourage everybody to go on there, start build a personal agent, and play around with it. Right? I mean, that's part of it. And for anybody who's kind of attended these in the past, or if anybody who's not a customer and wants to learn more, feel free to reach out. Obviously today was a focus on the product tour and kind of guide you through some of the use cases, but you might have a use case that you're thinking about that I didn't address today. So you don't have to wait for another one of these. If you want to reach out to us, just email support, or and they'll get you with the right people to talk through it. Again, hey, thanks guys for everything. Thanks for showing up. I appreciate it. Part of our mission here is obviously we believe in our product. We believe it can add value, and we've seen it work really well for VBUs across the world. But obviously there's a bigger picture here, which is beating on the same drum that you've probably heard many, many times from your GMs, your portfolio managers, your operating groups, and even from Mark Miller, who we directly report to, is this is a big opportunity for vertical market software. What's unique about our position is that we are typically, in most cases, system of record, and we have a deep knowledge of our businesses and our verticals, and we have great relationships with our customers. Right? They've been with us for a long time, most of our customers, and that is a huge advantage that should not be undervalued. But in order for us to take advantage of this leap in technology evolution, we have to somehow convert that power, that position that we have, that pole position that we're in, into thinking agentic and thinking AI. And so, like I said, I think most of you are using tools, and that's awesome. And you're probably embedding AI into your processes. That's awesome. But, for us to really capture not only internal value, but external, and, it starts internally, because until we do it, we're not going to be able to obviously speak intelligently to our customers. We actually have to embrace this. And it's going to take a little bit of risk, and you're going to fail a lot more than you succeed. You're going to get frustrated because this is a new world, and agents aren't exactly something that we were all expecting to have to learn overnight in the last year. But it is something that once you cross that chasm and you start thinking from the enterprise perspective, it's gonna grow like wildfire, and you're going to start to see benefits. And I can't stress this enough, because our goal at CSI is that every one of our BUs is on the path to becoming AI native. And that's not just about deploying tools and installing Claude Code and everybody high-fiving each other in the lunchroom because they vibe coded a front end to an app. This is about taking our existing businesses, all the knowledge, all the stuff that we have that we've accumulated over tens of years, and bringing it into and making it AI native, like we talked about earlier in the call, vectorizing our business, taking our workflows, both internal and external, and start thinking about making them agentic, having AI inside of that workflow, even if it's doing one piece of it, even if it's redlining an NDA, but the lawyer still has to look at it, even if it's evaluating a lead and doing, nurturing and qualification, the sales rep still gets the lead. It just insert AI into your workflows, because that's what's going to take in order for us to adopt it. The more autonomous, the better. If the AI is doing work and we don't even know it's doing work, that's ideal, because then you don't have to worry about people adopting it, right? Just have it work, right? Have it do the work for you and have it do the work for your teams, right? And then third, make this a cultural, a priority, right? Get everybody on raia. Why not? I mean, there's no reason why every single one of your employees doesn't sign up for a developer license. This is not a development tool. This is a place where your people, your teams can start to actually create their twin, right? Make that the objective. Say, hey guys, everybody go to this website, request a license, and your job by the end of June is to download all of the things that you do and know into an agent. Grab all those Word documents, grab all those PDFs, grab everything that if it's not written down, then write it down because it's in your brain. Put it all in an agent, and that's your twin. Call it Rich AI or Elliot AI or whatever you want to call it, right? Your name, and then dump all that data in there, and then maybe don't share it. Maybe there's stuff in there you don't want to share, or share it with your team and say, hey, if you want to ask me a question, ask Rich AI first. Rich AI, just like Pacioli, the thing that is basically Scott AI. It's just named Pacioli for God knows why, but it is. But it's basically Scott's brain. The stuff that we built out in TSS for M&A, that's Nicola's brain, right? So just build your twin, let people talk to it, and you're on the road to then becoming AI native. So I encourage everybody to accelerate, and hopefully we're part of your journey. And again, I appreciate you taking time out of the day. Thank you so much for participating. Hopefully next time we get more questions. I might have to change this to Rich is going to talk for 2 hours, whether you like it or not, webinar, but so be it, right? Like, it's okay. Hopefully you'll still attend. All right, guys, enjoy your day, and see you around.